disappointed the last couple of months I was living in Colorado when they announced that there had been a lot of crime on that trail in that park perpetrated against women. So the newspapers and the television stations began warning us not to run or hike or bike on that trail in that park anymore until they apprehended the criminal. And I was bugged. I thought, oh man, that's my favorite place to go and, work out and really kind of unwind. About 2 weeks after they announced these warnings, we had this perfect fall weekend. Just blue skies. The temperatures were in the low 60s. And I thought, it's just too pretty for criminal activity this weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and chance it and go to the park. So on Saturday afternoon, I drove to the park. I did notice there was only one other car in the parking lot. And then when I got to the trailhead, I noticed there were new posters from the Colorado Springs Police Department very clearly warning women against running, hiking, or biking on these trails. But I thought, I'll be fine today. So I start running that trail. I'm singing. I get to the very top. And right before I step into that meadow, I stop dead in my tracks behind this huge pine tree because about 50 feet in front of me was a naked man. And I thought, oh, good night. I can't believe this. Here I was being all spiritual. I was singing a hymn. And I've run smack into the bad guy in his birthday suit. I thought, oh, I can't believe this. So at first I was real indignant. But then I realized very quickly, oh, yikes, I am in such a vulnerable position. I have not seen one other person the whole time I've been here. I'm 2.5 miles into the wilderness. If I screamed, nobody would even hear me. I left my cell phone in the car. And I got so nervous, I just couldn't think clearly. When I get nervous, I'm kind of like a junior high kid on Mountain Dew. My mind just goes 90 to nothing. I only had 2 clear thoughts. Here were my thoughts. I remembered either reading or seeing on Oprah that men who expose themselves are typically cowards and not confrontive. So I remembered that. And my only other thought was I had read in one of my hiking magazines that if you live out west and you come upon a wild animal, unless it's a bear, it behooves you to put your hands over your head and advance toward the wild animal, all the while speaking in deep guttural tones. Because then that scares the animal. They think you're a bigger, badder animal. So those 2 thoughts formed what I'm going to call logic tonight. And I decided I'm going to jump out from behind this tree and try to intimidate him before he attacks me. So I took this deep breath, I jumped out from behind the tree, and I literally ran toward the naked man going, hey, just as guttural as I could. And y'all, it worked because he jumped up, obviously terrified, and then he took off in the opposite direction. And I noticed, of course, for the first time when he jumped up that he was actually wearing the smallest of blue running shorts. Those shorts sometimes runners wear that are slit up the side? Well, the way this guy was sitting, those shorts had splayed open. And from where I was standing, I was the tree was obscuring my sight line a little bit. But y'all, I would have put money on the fact that he was naked. And what was such a riot is when he was running away from me, he kept looking over his head, afraid I was going to chase him. And I thought, I know where he's going. That was his car in the parking lot. He's going to run down to his car, get his cell phone, call the police and say, it's a girl. It's a girl up there terrorizing everybody. Have y'all ever been in a situation where you saw something with your natural eyes, and initially you thought, oh, I know exactly what that is? I just realized naked man was probably not the best illustration since you actually see so many here in Vegas. So that's actually not much of a stretch for y'all. But have you ever seen something like maybe you thought you saw a deer on the side of the road, but you got closer and realized, oh, that's actually a mailbox or a trash can? You know how our perception can just so confuse us. Y'all, scaring innocent men loitering in mountain meadows, that is mild compared to the damage we do when we turn blurry vision or a distorted perspective toward God, toward who God is, toward how much He loves us.